Tonight, Seymour Hersh, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter, in his first television investigative report.
This is it. This puts the line. So I have to say that these documents we have been in the government's possession since June at least. I don't think you've been telling the truth about your connection. And I think these documents show that you have not.
Tonight on Frontline, Seymour Hersh sets out in pursuit of a man's true identity and his role in a plot for buying the bomb.
From the network of public television stations, a presentation of KCTS Seattle, WNET New York, WPBT Miami, WTVS Detroit, and WGBH Boston. This is Frontline with Judy Woodward.
Good evening. For the past 10 years, there have been repeated allegations that Pakistan has been developing nuclear weapons. Officials in the United States and Europe say Pakistan has been secretly trying to assemble technology necessary to build an atomic bomb. Pakistan has repeatedly denied these allegations, claiming its nuclear program is only for peaceful purposes. But it has permitted no independent inspection of its research and test facilities and has refused to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Under the Carter administration, American aid to Pakistan was twice suspended because officials said there were growing fears about Pakistan's nuclear intentions. But since the Soviet Union invaded Pakistan's neighbor, Afghanistan, in 1979, aid to Pakistan has been renewed and even increased to $3.2 billion in military and economic assistance, making it the fourth highest recipient of United States aid. Tonight on Frontline, Pulitzer Prize-winning former New York Times reporter Seymour Hersh, in his first investigative report for television, raises new and disturbing questions about how close Pakistan has come to building a nuclear device. His report is produced by Mark Obenhaus and Edward Gray. It is called Buying the Bomb.
These tiny electrical switches, known as Krytrons, are manufactured only in the United States by EG&G, a leading defense contractor. They have use in high-energy physics and oil exploration. But a Krytron can also trigger an atomic bomb. This man is Nazir Ahmed Vaid. He risked 12 years in an American jail when he tried to smuggle to Pakistan 50 Krytrons with a value of less than $4,000. After a 4-month investigation, the United States government concluded that he was nothing more than a negligent businessman, as reported on KHOU-TV in Houston, Texas on October the 22nd, 1984.
Reporting live from Houston's News Center, Chip Moody and Felicia Jeter.
A 33-year-old Pakistani man was sentenced to 5 years probation today after admitting that he tried to export triggers for nuclear weapons to Pakistan. Nazir Ahmed Vaid, a Pakistani freight handler, was arrested at Houston Intercontinental Airport back in June. Federal Judge James Dianda said Vaid was not acting as an enemy spy, but rather was apparently just trying to accommodate one of his customers. The Pakistani said he was going to ship the high-speed nuclear triggers to someone at a Pakistan university for research purposes.
My name is Seymour Hersh. This is a film about my investigation into the true identity of Nazir Ahmed Vaid.
You just caught me in time. I've just arrived from Middle Rock. I'm on my way to the airport.
We'll make it quick as possible.
Yeah.
Not painless, but quick.
Yes.
Mr. Ambassador, I've been working the story of one Nazir Vaid, a Pakistani citizen who was arrested by American officials and accused of illegally attempting to export into Pakistan, your country, 50 Krytrons.
The government of Pakistan has absolutely nothing to do with this individual. He's a private trader based at Karachi, and that is all we know about him. And to the best of my knowledge, he's also not linked with the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission, and he acts and operates entirely in his individual capacity as a private businessman of Pakistan.
Do you know anything else about him? Who is he?
Well, he came into prominence, in fact, first time I heard about him, when he was detained at Houston. And then we came to know that he owns a private trading firm. Beyond that, I don't know much about him.
And you've checked with your officials in
Yes,
Islamabad?
of course I have, and they have confirmed that he has nothing to do whatsoever with the government of Pakistan.
What is your government's position on nuclear arms?
Well, I want to reiterate this as emphatically as I can, Mr. Hirsch, that the government of Pakistan is not engaged in the production of a nuclear weapon. The dimensions of our nuclear program are entirely peaceful. It is a very modest research and development program, mainly meant to meet our requirements in the energy sector and also the application of nuclear technology in the field of medicine, in the field of agriculture, and in the field of industry. The United States administration has repeatedly made its position clear that they would not welcome any development or any proliferation of nuclear weapons in the world, and that includes Pakistan also, and we are fully aware of that, and we have equally made our position clear that Pakistan is not engaged in the production of nuclear weapons.
The public record contradicts the ambassador. This man, S.A. Butt, shown here in a British television film, is a director of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. It has been documented that in the 1970s, while based in Paris, Mr. Butt orchestrated Pakistan's clandestine efforts to buy the bomb. It had been assumed that Butt would not risk operating in the United States because of Pakistan's dependence on American aid. Nazir Vaid was arrested for doing exactly what S.A. Butt and his operatives had done in Europe, and yet nothing was made of his capture. No press conference, no major news coverage, and the American government claimed it found no evidence that Vaid was operating as an agent. As a former senior official in the Arms Control Agency, what do you think Pakistan wanted with the Krytrons?
Oh, I don't have much doubt. I always try to leave myself a little residual doubt, but I have real trouble in this case. 50 Krytrons is a whole lot of Krytrons. And when you put it together with all of the other things we know about the Pakistani efforts to acquire nuclear materials which are not subject to IAEA safeguards, the long tradition they've had of using covert purchasing means to acquire things for their nuclear program, I don't have much doubt at all that they wanted those 50 Krytrons for nuclear explosive purposes.
Does Pakistan have a high-tech research apparatus capable of absorbing 50 Krytrons? Is there any possible need for that many Krytrons in Pakistan?
No, the suggestion that they needed 50 of these for the university is ridiculous.
Well, I'll tell you this much. If I were in the government and somebody walked in like Vaid, he just fell through the transom on, glasses flying, Krytrons flipping all over the place, I would sure make a case out of it. If I were the U.S. Attorney down in Texas, Houston, I would sure want the public to know how good we were, how bad the Pakistanis were. I would want some clear demarcations made public about what this country will tolerate and will not.
If you're trying to convince other countries that we have a well-established legal regime for controlling our exports, and that we bolster that with some kind of strong criminal penalties for people who violate it, then this case sends the wrong signal.
I think it's my function as a journalist to try and get as much as I can out there for people to make judgments about. And in this case, if what we believe to be true is true, we have a very cynical operation going on by Pakistan. And we have a government that's not paying enough attention to it. And maybe the press, by focusing an enormous amount of public attention, television in this case, can force enough people in Congress and enough people in the public to raise a stink so that maybe we can deal directly with the issue. We have a renegade country. Pakistan is behaving as a renegade. And it's important, I think, to try and tell people that. On October the 22nd, the day he was placed on probation, Nazir Vaid was still in the custody of federal officials, awaiting deportation. No reporter had heard his side of the story.
I think we can arrange to have a conversation tomorrow morning at the prison. What time should we come?
It's up to you, because I don't know if I'll be there long, because I could be transferred to the immigration.
But you're certainly going to be there overnight, aren't you?
I think so, yes.
Well, why don't I call out there to the facility tomorrow and see if we can arrange an interview in the morning. And if not, certainly before you leave, we'd very much like to talk to you.
Fine.
Would that be all right? Okay, thank you very much. Did you know at the time what a Crytron was?
I came to know the name Crytron. In fact, I might have read it once or twice before, but in real sense after I was arrested.
Did they ask you to buy Crytrons by name?
No, they never used the word Crytrons. In fact, they gave me a product number. Every product has a number.
KN22.
Exactly, yeah.
You got this order asking you, through a district from the University of Islamabad, asking you to purchase a KN22 from EG&G.
Okay.
And do you think it's possible that the order that came to you, appearing to be from the University of Islamabad, may have had a different purpose?
It's not appearing to be. It is from University of Islamabad, and it was definitely for research purpose. And it could never have been ended up as people in the United States suspect.
Why would the university be so foolish as to ask you and cooperate with you in breaking the law?
They didn't break or encourage me to break the law. They just placed an order, and they are not supposed to know the American laws.
But you sent them a cable, according to the Justice Department. You sent them a cable in which you made it clear to them that you understood that you would have to violate the law by shipping the material. These cables are what... the cables exist, I'm correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And why did they not tell you to stop at that point?
I sent this cable to my office. It was never communicated or never physically presented to the buyers. And I thought it's a simple export license requirement. So I sent with proper, or at least it's a generic description. I don't know a proper word, but I described them as bulbs and switches, and I sent it to my freight forwarder to present it to the customs. I thought that if they feel that this is not allowed without a license, they'll simply say that they won't do. In fact, this is my main grief, that the undercover agent collected the payment, the undercover agent delivered the goods, the undercover agents were watching each movement, they were waiting for me, they trailed me. At any single stage, they should have simply told me that, look, we feel that you're going to break the law. Why don't you take an export license? But they in fact, they don't have much job, I believe. So they try to encourage people to commit crime and then make a big propaganda that they have all the laurels for them. And it is typical of Americans in that they always exaggerate things. If I really wanted to smuggle it out, there were a handful of switches. And I can suggest, as a freight forwarder, I can suggest 1,000 ways to smuggle them out. I could have put it in somebody's briefcase who could have flown without any problem. But I never felt that I'm smuggling out something. I'm not trying to say that I'm innocent. I did commit a crime. I knew that this needed an export license. But I never knew its usage till I was arrested. So I was used as a scapegoat.
Do you think it's possible you were perhaps used also by people back in Pakistan? Do you think it's possible? Definitely not.
Definitely not. There's no chance.
Vaid's earnestness in presenting his case was appealing. He seemed to lack the guile associated with a foreign agent. He had retained 3 attorneys in Houston. William Burge was in charge of the criminal aspects of the case.
One of the amazing things about this case is the little press attention it's generated here and around the country, although it is, as you said, it's big news in Pakistan and India. Have you had any contact with local media and local television at all, significantly on this case?
No, I haven't, but you have to understand that there was a gag order entered prior to indictment in this case, just a few days after the arrest, to prevent me or anybody else connected with the case from talking to the media about the case.
How did the gag order originate?
It was at my request.
Why did you do it?
I did it after CBS News nationally contacted me and wanted to interview me concerning the case. I didn't want to stir up publicity about the case. I was afraid it would adversely affect my client at a jury trial.
Why do you think the government went along?
I think the government, I'm speculating at this point, I think the government went along because we are friendly with Pakistan. This case apparently was embarrassing to the government of Pakistan,
and they didn't want any more publicity than was necessary about the case.
Do you have any real basis for saying that? Let me ask this question very toughly, or is it just a feeling? What made you think the government wanted not to embarrass Pakistan in this case?
It's based on statements that were made to me by the prosecutors, not direct statements to that effect, but their reaction to my motion for a gag order was, hey, that sounds okay. We're not interested in having a lot of publicity about this case either.
Our belief of the case is that Vaid was working directly or had some direct connection to the Pakistani government and was doing what he was doing on behalf of the officials in Pakistan involved in the nuclear bomb business. Admittedly, there was no evidence like that generated in the case. Am I correct?
That's correct. There wasn't any evidence at all that he was acting as an agent. First, they suspected that, but they never had any proof to that effect.
Did you ever question what he was doing?
Did I have any question of him, you mean?
Sure.
Well, he never said to me that he was acting as an agent for the government. He owns a freight forwarding company. He said that he was filling an order, as it turns out, for the University of Islamabad.
Fair enough. And the government absolutely did not begin to prove its case with, in terms of connecting him to anything at all untoward in Pakistan. And so it became a straightforward issue. Okay, it could be we're all wet too on this.
Federal agents thought enough of the case against Nazir Vaid to spend 9 months working undercover. The investigation began in Massachusetts, where Vaid tried to buy the Krytrons directly from the manufacturer, EG&G. The firm was suspicious of Vaid and the size of the order. It tipped off the government. Vaid was followed to Houston, and he was under surveillance when he placed the same order through a local distributor.
Is it possible we're all wrong about this, that all of us are wrong, that Vaid really was just a legitimate businessman trying to cut a corner here and there, and maybe he wasn't as wise about the laws as he should have been, or as careful or prudent, and he took a little bit of a chance, and that Pakistan really just wanted them for medical research, and that that, as he told us, that we're exaggerating everything. He said, you Americans always exaggerate everything. Is it possible?
Yes, it's distinctly possible. However, at the point where he was told that he couldn't get them legally, I think a businessman would have backed off at that point. He was told at one time that a license was required by a manufacturer who was very upfront with him about it, and he went out of his way not to obtain a license that he knew perfectly well was needed. He was given several opportunities at the time of shipment to declare exactly what was in his package. Had he done so, he would have again been informed that a license was required. But again, he did not do so. So he had several opportunities to be straight with us, to tell us what he was sending out, and to obtain the proper licensing.
You don't think marking them as bulbs/switches does the job? Is that it?
No, it does not.
By law, Vaid could not be arrested until he attempted to ship the Krytrons overseas. His customs broker cooperated with the government in the investigation.
Tell me what you know about this case and how you got drawn into it.
Well, we received quite a number of months ago a phone call from the customs officials that he was suspected of smuggling high technology items out of the United States. And we were told whenever he would make contact to let the customs officials know, which we did. According to the shipping listing, and when I spoke to him, he only declared or stated that these were office items. They were stapling guns, file folders, you know, things of no type of suspicious nature.
50 bulbs/switches.
50 bulbs/switches.
Did he do anything out of the ordinary?
Vaid raised one strange question. If U.S. Customs would open up any traffic leaving the country, and I just turned around and told him if there's no suspicion, no, go ahead, seal the box. It was done.
And he did seal it?
He did seal it, yes.
The federal prosecutor who prepared the case against Vaid told the court a few days after the arrest that he strongly suspected that Vaid was operating as a Pakistani agent. And yet, just before trial, The same prosecutor agreed the plea bargain and reduced the charges in the case.
Don't you think this case is more important than it seems to be? Don't you think...
What do you mean by that?
I have a sense about it.
It's an important case. They're all important cases that we work down here. We shouldn't make more of it, on the other hand, than there really is there. It's a felony case in which a person was convicted of willfully exporting non-exportable merchandise, munitions. But the evidence was not there to support a theory which I personally espoused early on, that this person was a spy or an agent of the Pakistani government. That evidence simply was not there.
Would it have been possible for you to insist that our government make a diplomatic note or protest or démarche to the Pakistani government and seek some information on what Vaid was doing?
There was no thought about that, simply because that's beyond my power and authority as an assistant U.S. attorney. My duty here is to enforce federal criminal law. And the violation of federal criminal law was established from the time Mr. Vaid had consigned these articles to shipment and put them into foreign commerce. Once he had done that without the requisite securing of a license, he'd violated the statute. That was our only instance. As far as everything else, finding out why they were to be purchased or their ultimate source use, that would all be in the nature of background. And obviously I have no authority to order anybody in the State Department or any other arm of the government to do anything in that regard. So the answer is no.
May I ask, did you at any point talk to the State Department about the case, or anybody anybody in Washington, to get a sense of what they thought or where the case could go? Was there contact with Washington in this case?
Of course there was input, yes.
Did you get a political sense about the case? Did you get a sense that, given everything, resolving the case speedily, resolving the case from the government's point of view, the Justice Department's point of view, satisfactorily, was very important, and also with a minimum of external plus?
I did talk to people in Washington, yes, both in the State Department and the Department of Justice. They were of great help in the case, and they had a very great interest in it. But really that's about all I can say. You could go ask them as to what their feelings were. I can only tell you what my feelings are. And my feeling is that it is a case that we prosecuted because of the fact that it was a violation of law. We didn't prosecute it for any political motives, and we had no political intentions in seeking a quick disposition of the case.
It seems to me there's another greater issue here that somehow that I don't see reflected in this case that much, which is that he wasn't just breaking a law. He was shipping back very sensitive equipment that probably, if the Customs Bureau had not intervened, may have been used in making an implosion device for a nuclear or hydrogen bomb. And that seems to me to be an enormously difficult factor. And to look at it just as, and maybe this is the journalist in me, to look at it just as a case of he broke the law and this is it, seems to me to fall short, if not of legal principles, which it certainly does not, of something else. Do you understand what I'm driving at?
I really don't, Mr. Hirsch. I don't understand that at all. What are you trying to...
I'm trying to say that the potential enormity of what he was doing, Vaid, as an agent for somebody else, it seems to me is such that it's worthy of some extraordinary steps, not in terms of the outcome of the case, perhaps an investigation, perhaps really pushing Pakistan for some information.
What would you have us do? What would you have me do? Now, you know, what I do here day in and day out is draft indictments to present for consideration to grand juries, to indict people who we suspect have violated federal criminal law. That's all I do for a living. I don't know what I can do to serve as moral anodyne about what Pakistan is doing or not doing with their nuclear program. I just can't, that goes way beyond what I can do.
You start out with these stories as some sort of a theory, and when you say, now, if this theory is right, this guy's going to take a walk, and not that anybody fixes everything, it's just that the way you present it to a judge and the way the government prosecutes the case and what they don't do is more important than what they do. They don't investigate the goddamn Pakistani angle. There's no sign that the government, the FBI, the customs went bananas on to find out who this guy is and what he was working on. Vaid was 3 days from being deported.
Mr. Vaid, thank you for seeing us again. We've interviewed Michael Bohm at the shipping company that you used to ship the Critrons, who told us that you asked him whether or not, while it was being wrapped, whether or not it would go through customs. And
yes, I asked that question, but why?
Please give an answer.
Because, it was totally to plan the packaging. It was meant for nothing else. If there was no customs to be done, then I'll seal the package. I never sealed the package. I just sent it open for customs with a list declaring them as switches or bulbs. That is how I knew it then. I remembered the name Crytron after I was arrested and when it was sort of talked about.
The problem I have with all of this is that why take a chance and violate the export laws of this country? With electronic gadgetry, whether you knew about it or not, EG&G, perhaps you must have known, was a big defense contractor in the nuclear industry business. The money in it to ship the goods is meaningless. Why take such a chance?
I never took a chance. I sent the package open to the customs with declaration, and the usual universal approach should have been that the customs checks it and says, look, this item needs a license.
We've also learned that, in the opinion of many experts in the United States, there is really nothing in Pakistan in terms of medical facilities or research in high-energy physics that would justify 50 Critrons. I think we have to say we see you as somebody who had to understand what he was doing. And we wonder what you think about that.
First of all, let me tell you about American experts. Shah of Iran really depended on American experts, and you know the result. Where he landed, nobody in the world let him put his feet on their own land, and he died a miserable death in spite of all his money and all American support. So American experts are such. And as far as my knowledge is concerned, as everybody knows, that we have the capability to build a nuclear weapon. But we openly say that we don't do it. We don't at least plan to make a bomb, and we are not going to do it until, I don't know, the situation of the world changes. And at present, I'm 100% sure, not 99%, 100%, that we are not planning to have any nuclear device.
I hear what you're saying. There are many people in your government and in your country who share this view, and yet there's this incredible game played in which Pakistan is forced to go around saying, well, it's okay, nothing really happening. I think it's a game. I wonder what you think. In other words, that they're in a position of having publicly to please perhaps us, the Americans who supply so much aid. What's your attitude about this public position of denying what most people in the world know exists?
I think countries like ours, we are very frank and straightforward. We don't play games like superpowers do. We do what we say what we do.
Is there anything you would say to the American people? Any particular statement you want to make?
In fact, about America, I'm going to write a book, let me tell you frankly. I feel that America is heading or running very fast towards self-destruction. And this self-destruction is not unifold, it's manifold. There's social self-destruction. They're heading for a religious destruction. They're heading for a political destruction. Heading for an economic destruction. They are heading for humanitarian destruction. And a few more which I'm still thinking, I'm working on it. And I'm going to write a book on that. I'm really trying to project many things which Americans living in America do not realize. Only we people who come here as visitors can realize how different they are.
With each interview, Nazir Vaid's account of his actions seemed less credible, but his need to express his strong feelings about America appeared to override caution.
And I'm really happy that I could talk to probably American masses through you. And at least I'm happy that my position is much clearer.
At the end of our second interview, Vaid agreed to waive the attorney-client privilege, making it possible for his two immigration attorneys, Peter Williamson and Spencer Gardner, to speak freely. The lawyers had some startling documents to show me.
There are a series of cables from Vaid to Pakistan which tell an awful large part of the story. This one, for example.
Read it, please.
And it's referenced the EG&G products, which are the Critrons. They completely regretted the possibility to supply, as they were not allowed to sell even to Canada. I have made some alternative arrangements and have placed the order for KN-22s already. Delivery 30 days. Full payment has been made in advance.
The telexes showed that Nazir Vaid had been directed to purchase the Critrons by S.A. Butt, the same man who ran Pakistan's clandestine operations in Europe in the 1970s. He was also receiving orders from Colonel Dar, the senior executive officer of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. Williamson then produced a series of letters making clear that Vaid had been filling orders inside the United States for Colonel Dar and Mr. Butt for more than a year. The letters directly linking Vaid to the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission had been in the government's possession since the day of Vaid's arrest.
This is it. This puts the lie to Vaid. I have to say that. Vaid, unless you can explain otherwise, indicated to us just in the jailhouse just a few hours ago, we saw him literally an hour and a half ago, he again and again reiterated that he did not have any idea that anybody in the senior echelon of the Pakistan government had any interest in his affairs, that he was simply fulfilling an order for the University of Islamabad, and he specifically denied there was any other purpose, or that he had any thought there was any other purpose, or that he had any thought his government was involved.
That's what I was telling you. I think the guy knew what he was doing. And I don't know why the government didn't make any more of this. Now, that's what I'm hoping you're going to be able to tell me, why the government didn't make more of this. The government started off this case, going into court, reading something from the State Department, saying this man is a big spy and we got to do all kinds of horrible things to him. And at the end of the case, for some reason, they quietly folded their books and went away. There is no reason that Mr. Vaid, there is no reason that he shouldn't have done a lot of time in the penitentiary. We fully expected that, and I can still see no reason why it hasn't been done.
And you are his defense attorney, let's say that.
Well, listen, that just means I want the government to follow the law, but you've seen the case that they got here. You've seen what's been going on here. You've seen what's involved. You tell me why he's not doing a long time in the joint.
Did you ever talk to Vaid? You get these cables at the last minute, right before you're supposed to go to trial. Did you ever, and, they obviously, I think, put the lie to Vaid. Did you ever confront him with these?
Sure.
What did he say?
Well, he was in the position, because we were just a few hours before trial, where his response was, well, can we still work a deal with the government?
No, more than that. He's lied to us directly, Vaid. No, we've got the smoking, you're absolutely right, it's the smoking gun, these cables. The next question, but since what, the late 70s has been the sort of the senior guy directing the whole purchase. See, here's what's knocking us out about this story. Initially, Butt is in Paris, right, running around directing the purchase of centrifuges and other stuff to develop enriched products for weapon making. And now, it seems clear, he's in the weapons design. When you're buying Critrons, you're into weapons, you're into triggers. And this is an escalation, and we're now talking about stockpile. We have to be. The next question, obviously, we have in this whole case is, these documents we have been in the government's possession since June, at least. And they have not used them in the case against this guy. Isn't that amazing?
there's one telex that says through Colonel Dar or Mr. Butt.
Exactly. So, but we did not know who those people were. My customs agent did not know who those people were. And as I just told you, I've just talked to her. She found out from me, and I found out from you.
Do you think she should have known?
Well, I would say she should have if customs knew.
They might have had it, but didn't know what it was.
Well, that's right. We had the telexes. If we had known who Butt and Dar were, we would have been in a position to prove that. But we, like I say, we didn't. It also bears out the hunch that I had from the beginning that this man was operating at the behest of the Pakistani government. That is personally gratifying to me.
But Sam, the judge went so far in his statement in court to say that this is just a nice sort of businessman who got off the wrong foot, and it's clear that he wouldn't have said that had he known more about the man and more about this connection.
Well, I wish I had known the information for the purpose of sentencing. But by the same token, sentencing has no relevance to the legal maintainability of the prosecution. I wanted the sentence to be higher, and if I had been armed with this information at the time of sentencing, I feel confident that Judge DeAndra's decision to give the probated sentence that he did would have been different. But we did not have that information. He asked me from the bench, do you have any evidence that this man is an agent of the Pakistani government? I said, no, I don't. So if I had had this, I might have had a good argument that he was operating at the behest of the government, as I suspected from the beginning. But I didn't have this, so...
But you did. That's, my point.
I didn't have it.
But it was there in the file.
I was the one speaking for the government in court, and I didn't have it.
Right. Do you think Washington knew? Do you think the senior officials in the State Department or in the Justice Department knew? You mean no clue, no indication?
No clue, no indication.
Sam took some pleasure in our little confrontation over the fact that during a preliminary hearing in this case, he did describe Vaid as an agent of the Pakistani government. I don't think there's that much pleasure to be had either for Sam or the federal government in this case. The fact is the documents we have in our possession indicate that officials at the Customs Bureau knew that Mr. Vaid was in direct contact with the senior officials of the Pakistani Atomic Energy Agents Commission, men who were directly involved in making the bomb. They knew it from day one of the case. These documents received, along with telexes showing trafficking, specific dealings on the Krytrons. They knew this within a few days of the bust, and they made no effort to analyze or interpret the data. And it's a terrific failure. They had documents directly linking Vaid to the bomb, and they didn't even know what they were.
This is not the telex I sent. Could be a fabrication, first of all. Number one, I will not accept this as an authenticated evidence to anything what you're claiming. Number two, I never knew the buyer which is being proved by this text. I sent this text. I don't refuse that.
You sent this text?
Yeah, text, but not the names at the top. I was shown this telex in past, and I even contradicted right at that stage.
You were shown this telex by whom?
By my lawyers.
But not by anybody in the government?
No.
Did any government official broach these letters to you?
No.
Mr. Butt has been identified by American officials as the single key man in the Pakistani government that has been responsible for arranging the covert and overt shipment of various parts needed to make the bomb and the weapons assembly.
That's why they have put his name on these telexes.
Mr. Vaid, who would fabricate these?
I don't know. I really don't know.
I mean, do you really think that the American government would fabricate a series of what seem to be...
I'm not blaming American government. I'm blaming nobody for that. But as far as I'm concerned, I have nothing to do with these telexes.
Mr. Vaid, these are your telexes.
They are not mine.
Mr. Vaid, I posit to you this, sir, that it is my belief that you were purchasing Krytrons in violation of American law at the direct behest of Mr. Butt and Colonel Dar, the men who are at the top of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission, men who have been directly linked to Pakistan's clandestine efforts to make the bomb. I don't think you've been telling the truth about your connection, and I think these documents show that you have not.
It's your accusation. I had a many accusations in past, and I accept this too with a smile. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Vaid, and have a good trip back. There are many at fault for the government's inability to learn the truth about Nazir Vaid. Some in Houston, but far more in Washington. The investigators in Houston had discovered documents whose significance they did not grasp, primarily because the names of S.A. Budd and Colonel Dar, amazingly, did not show up in the Treasury Department files and computers relied upon by the customs agents who broke the case. But there were also those officials in Washington, more knowledgeable about Pakistan and non-proliferation, who should have known the significance of this case. None would talk.
Just to remind him, please, that we're very anxious to get the State Department side of this story. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
There are agencies of the federal government specifically charged with monitoring cases like this. The Justice Department's Division of Internal Security, the Pentagon's Office of International Security Policy, and the State Department's Office of Non-Proliferation and Export Policy.
Trying to arrange an interview with Secretary Murphy. We need somebody to stand up and articulate what the administration's policy is.
After many weeks, many telephone calls, and many visits, the State Department reluctantly agreed to an off-the-record briefing.
I've just returned from a series of meetings in the State Department on the Vaid case. And as usual, once back in Washington, I'm not allowed to tell you with whom I was talking or at what level the officials were that were speaking to me. And the contrast between Washington and Houston couldn't have been more startling. Here I'm getting gobbledygook, and in Houston we could put people on camera, ask questions, raise issues directly. And I'm not allowed to tell you very much about my meetings except to say, after a lot of consideration and thought, I presume, the government was finally able to come up with a 3-paragraph response to a series of questions I've asked about this case. And in essence, what these people and the officials with whom I'm talking dealt directly with non-proliferation and also with Pakistan. What they said was this. 1, the Department of State kept in close touch with the Vaid case. 2, it urged that the laws be fully prosecuted in the case. And 3, it was asked by the Department of Justice to provide an expert witness on Pakistan bomb making for the prosecution of this case. It chose not to do so for 2 reasons. 1, because the law under which Vaid was prosecuted did not deal with the intent of his act, as we know, as we all well know, that it didn't matter where the end use of the Krytrons was or what it was to be. And 2, as the statement says, such testimony would necessarily entail revelation of highly classified information. So what the government is saying, the Department of State is saying to me, in essence, and to you, is trust us. We have some very highly classified information about Vaid, they said. Don't worry, we know who he was. And never mind that we weren't able to tell the Justice Department about it, or we clearly weren't able to tell the judge in making the sentencing on the case about it. He certainly had no idea. But we're following it closely, and just don't sweat it, is what they said. And when I raised the obvious questions as a journalist, what about the public policy question? What about the issue of how much the public should be told in the Congress about what the Pakistani government was doing? What about the fact that an official or a representative of the Pakistani government presumably was in this country purchasing nuclear bomb parts and caught? Shouldn't the public know? And the answer was they do know. An official looked me in the eye and said, don't you think that anybody reading the press accounts of this case, the Vaid case, would understand that Vaid was only here at the behest of the Pakistani government? Wouldn't that be the only thing they could conclude?
The Reagan administration's decision not to grant on-the-record interviews is clearly linked to its policy towards the military government of Pakistan's president, General Zia-ul-Haq. Officially, the U.S. government accepts President Zia's denials of nuclear ambitions. Democratic Senator Alan Cranston of California has been the leading congressional critic of U.S. policy towards Pakistan.
I can't figure out what the administration has in mind in regard to Pakistan and the bomb. I guess they just feel that if they sweet-talk Pakistan and keep on giving assistance to Pakistan, that Pakistan will be nice and well-behaved and not develop a nuclear capacity or never threaten to use it or use it. But that could be a dream world. And the continued progress by Pakistan toward nuclear weapons raises grave concerns in India and in other countries and could lead to a firestorm that could sweep the world. And now members of Congress are concerned about the fact that Pakistan is on the frontier of Russian expansionism in Afghanistan, and that we need to maintain a friendly relationship, according to these people, with Pakistan in order to help get aid into the rebels in Afghanistan. I believe that our relationship is so important to Pakistan that we have some leverage we could use to prevent them from developing a nuclear weapon.
You honestly believe that if we decided to, we could dissuade Zia from going ahead with making bombs?
I believe we could dissuade Zia from going ahead if we used all the leverage we have. He needs us more than we need him.
Thomas Graham became an expert on Pakistan's nuclear policies while serving as a foreign affairs officer in the Arms Control Agency.
Tom, do you think that the senior officials of Pakistan find the American position on non-proliferation to be credible?
No, I think their actions show that they believe that if they keep pushing, the United States will keep backing off. It's happened for several administrations. It would be very logical from their point of view to think that it would continue to happen, short of Pakistan actually using a nuclear weapon.
So President Zia has nothing to lose by pushing forward, is that the point?
If I were Zia, I would work as hard as I could to complete my nuclear program, because I would guess that the United States would in the end do nothing about it.
Why aren't there more people articulating what you're willing to articulate, which is that this question of proliferation had better be moved from wherever it is down near the bottom up to the top of priorities? Do you have any idea, any ideas as you think about it?
The main problem in this administration is that there are very few senior officials who actually follow this subject. There's no one on the NSC staff, no one on the policy planning staff, and very little interest in this at the level of the President, Secretary of Defense, or Secretary of State. So the people who are working on it are working quite hard, but they're not in a position to make the final decisions that need to be made.
Paul Warnke served as director of the Arms Control Agency under President Carter.
The relatively casual attitude that was taken by the United States toward this episode can only lead people to feel that we don't really care that much as to whether or not proliferation takes place. And I think that there's a certain disrespect now for the non-proliferation